How do you get drums in this genre of music that are this fast and still have them sound relatively real, yet not have them get completely lost by a wall of guitars? Okay, so first thing you got to do, obviously, is control the dynamics within the performance of the drums themselves, so that they get louder and softer and change tone like they would with the drummer playing. But another thing that you can do is a lot of snare automation. Now, for some reason, I didn't have to do a crazy amount on this song. It sounded the way the band wanted it to sound, which is, sometimes you get lucky. But one of the things that you normally would do is, and let me show you that we got snare top, snare bottom, and a sample, and then a parallel to a sample. So this is not like I'm in Sample City anyways, but typically what you would do is just, for instance, turn down the sample on the super fast parts. But the way that I got around this was that I printed the samples with dynamics. So as you can see right here, I did this in order to save myself a lot of time. This right here, the one that says snare big, that's my sample track. If this was, another time period or something like that, I would have done this dynamic free. Now, I'm not going to say that it matches exactly what the natural drum is doing, but if you compare it to the snare top, I'll put the sample next to the snare top. It is, it is kind of doing similar things. Like, okay, so maybe with the snare top, it's going soft, really loud. This is going soft, louder. And one of the reasons to use samples is to get a little bit more of a consistent tone and a consistent dynamic. So you don't want your samples to be wildly all over the place. But you notice this is quieter than, say, the samples. And I didn't have to do it with automation. I printed it that way, and yay. But for instance, sometimes I still did have to tweak the automation because that one just sounded too robotic to me. So as you can see right here, I brought the sample down. How much is that? By 1.5 dB. And I brought up the natural snare by the same amount. So let me see what I did with the bottom snare. And I also brought up the bottom snare by 3 dB. Pro tip, bottom snare mic is probably, in my opinion, out of all your different snare mic options, snare tone options, that's the one that's going to keep things sounding the most real. Like, if you completely got rid of your snare top microphones, but then had your snare bottom and natural snare bottom and just samples, you could get away with making it sound real. So when you have fast parts and blast beats, parts that are in question about sounding too robotic, a good friend to rely on is your bottom snare. So typically, if I bring up the snare top in a blast beat by like 1.5 dB, I'll bring up the bottom by 3 dB. It's usually, I'll go twice as much on the bottom as I do on the top. And that gives it much more of a natural sound.